Lord. Okay, I've been on mute this entire time. Weston, can you hear me? Just give me a thumbs up if you're there. Oh, God, man. Okay, I'm gonna go over this. I was just on mute. I'll edit that out. I can go back and edit that out. So today we're gonna go over 4A. Great, thank you. Today we're gonna go over really 4B. 4A, I want you to read over. It's about personal finance. Read through it and then do homework numbers 1 through 66 odd. The test will include a question like, what's the total cost of owning your vehicle? Like the total cost each month of owning your vehicle, or maybe year for owning your vehicle. It's an estimate cost. I just want you to put in as much detail as possible. If you don't own a vehicle, that's fine. You can just research the total cost of owning a vehicle and just choose one. If you want to do like a dream car kind of thing, choose the dream car. I mean, you've got to have things like, gas for how much you drive, right? Gas, insurance, upkeep, even tags, oil change, things like that. So, and then the payment, of course, and insurance, if I didn't say that already. But just include that. That's going to be a good question on this next test. Okay, so read through those questions. There's some really good ones. It really just goes over really how to hone in your own finances, and then kind of some terminology. That's why it's really on you to read it and look at those definitions and read those definitions. So 4A is on you. 4B, though, I'm going to go over. It's one of my favorite sections. It's about compounding interest, and it's titled The Power of Compounding. So I'm going to switch over to the document camera now while I go over this. So to go over the second section. So the power of compounding. So your book first starts off with going over the difference between simple compounding versus simple versus compound interest. Simple versus compound interest. And a simple interest is, does he actually give you the word definition? Yeah. So the principle in financial formulas is the balance upon which interest is paid. Simple interest is interest paid only on the original investment and not on any interest added at later dates. Compound interest is interest paid both on the original investment and on the interest that has been added to the original investment. So simple is just the money you're making from the interest rate. That's it. Compound, though, will also include the money made from compounding the interest on the interest. I guess that's the best way to describe it. And simple interest is straightforward, right? Like if we what's something that would have simple interest? If we went to like a bank, and let's say our principal, we're going to use P. We went to a bank and we had $2,000. And they said, you know what, if you invest in this CD, your rate, we'll use R for rate on this one, we'll give you 1.5% period. Okay. And then now you have to leave in the bank for a year, and then you'll get 1.5% back. So to get simple interest, or the simple interest total, you would just say 2,000 times 1.015. So, we use the 1 because we want the total. And then the 0.015, that's actually our interest rate, right? If we run our interest rate as a decimal, which we know this already, it's just 0.015. So if I want the simple interest, or the simple amount I'm going to make off this formula, I would use that. Let me get my calculator here. It's 2,000 times 1.015, and we wind up with 2,030. So the simple interest we made is $30 right there. That would be simple interest. Okay, pretty basic. That's a horrible use of words. The compound interest formula, though, is a little different. Your book goes over 2 different types of compound interest formulas. First, it goes over the compound interest if interest was only paid once a year. This is on page 200. And it says, and I'll go over what each one of these are, but it's on the bottom of page 200 in that green box. It says A equals P times 1 plus APR, oop, that's a P, APR raised to the Y. Okay, so and let's go over what each one of these is. A is the accumulated balance after Y years. Right, so if we, and kind of if you look back at this one, the 2030 would be our A because it's the accumulated balance after, 1 year. Let me see if I can get it better. If I zoom in a little, hold on. I'm trying to get this. It's really fuzzy on my end. I'm not sure if it's fuzzy on your end. So A is the accumulated balance. P, of course, is our principal, the starting principal. Oop, it's an AO. APR is the annual percentage rate. And you'll see that word a lot, thrown around on commercials and things of that nature, but it's annual percentage rate. Now we have to write it as a decimal. Okay, back up here, we have to write it in decimal form, not in percentage form. So annual percent rate as a decimal. And then Y is just the number of years. And what this does, it'll capture the compounding on the compounding. Okay, the interest on the interest, this formula will catch the interest on the interest over those years. Okay, so let's say we looked at something. Now let's do a scenario. Okay, we'll do one over here. We go buy a scratch off, which will not be in the personal finance section. It will not tell you to do that. We go buy a scratch off and we win $5,000 on the scratch off. And we think, you know what? I don't need $5,000 right now. I could save it for a few years. And we look around. So we're going to use our principal as this $5,000. Okay, our principal is $5,000. And we go shop around at some banks and we find out that there's this one real sketchy bank, but it'll give us a really good interest rate. So we're going to just put our money in it. And it says, hey, we'll give you an APR of 6.2%, which is really high for a guaranteed rate. If you right now, you guys can Google, like press pause, Google on your phone. What's the CD rate going? And I'm assuming it's in decimals or it's really close to 1 because they don't want you to save. Right now, it's a spin kind of thing. So, but let's say this bank will give you a guaranteed 6.2%, and that's compounded yearly. Okay, so it's the APR. It's the annual percentage rate compounded yearly. And then let's say, we're like 19. I don't know. I guess you can buy scratch offs at 18. We're 19 and we're going to leave this in our bank account or leave this in the savings account until we get done with college. So let's say in 5 years, we want to go get a master's or something. So we're going to leave this for 5 years and let's see how much we have left over in this account. And we can just pop it in this formula. Okay. So the amount left over after compounding is going to be 5,000 times 1 plus, now we have to use the decimal here. So 0.062 raised to the 5th power. So I'm going to pop that in the calculator. So 5,000 parentheses 1 plus 0.062, close my parentheses, and then raise that to 5. And I get $6,754.49. Hey, you know what? We know this beats inflation. We talked about that section. Inflation really is around like close to 2 to 3%, somewhere usually between 2 and 3% lately. Well, we're going to beat that. We doubled inflation. So it's better than just leaving it, it's way better than leaving it under a mattress, right? And then better than putting it in like a CD or something basic that just kind of keeps up with inflation. So pretty neat. So this is if we are only compounding once a year, okay? This is if we are compounding once a year. The other equation, which also encompasses this one, is what if we have multiple compounds a year? Okay, and it is on, it's at the very top of page 206. And it looks a little different because it's really more in the form of number of compounds instead of number of years. So what you do is you actually have this formula. So A equals P times 1 plus, now you have your APR, but you divide it by N. We'll go over what N is. And the top is N times Y. Okay. So the A, of course, is the accumulated amount total. P is still principal. APR is still annual percentage rate. Y is still year. The only thing different, N, is the number of compounds. Number, do they say number of compounds a year? Yeah. Number of compounds per year. Okay. So let's look at a different one here. Let's say, and typically, like if you put something in a savings account, it's compounded monthly. So let's look at something that's compounded monthly. Let's say you've got, you hit another scratch off. Why not? And this time it's for $2,000. So you hit a $2,000 scratch off, or you earn $2,000. How about that? You're saving it, and you start shopping around, and you find that there's this one savings account that will give you an annual percentage rate of, let's say, 7.2%, but they compound monthly. And so when it says that, really it's telling you the number of N's. So if N says compound monthly, that really means N equals 12, right? If it's compounded quarterly, it means N equals 4. If it compounds biannually, it means 2, right? If it compounds weekly, it's 52. I think that's all the major ones. If they compound daily, it's 365. That's what we use for that one. Yeah. So anyway, let's say we're going to leave this in for, let's say 7 years and see what happens. Okay. So we're going to pop this into this formula. So we're going to do A equals 2,000 times 1 plus. Now, the difference is, so my APR, look, remember this is 0.072, right? I'm going to divide that. I'm going to say 0.072 divided by 12. This is exactly how I would write it in this calculator. And then I'm going to raise it to the 12 times 7. I'm going to put that in parentheses too, okay? So I'm going to take my calculator out. I'm going to 2,000 times 1 plus 0.072 divided by 12, close the parentheses, and then I'm going to raise it. You guys have a caret symbol on yours to raise it to the next power. I don't have that calculator in front of me. I'm at the house. I don't have home field advantage right now. But if you're not getting the same answer I'm getting, I'll tell you the most common mistake is not putting parentheses. And then also when make sure you put the power, the little raise to raise it to a number. It looks like a little caret symbol. It's not parentheses, but it's just this little caret symbol. 12 times 7. And I get $3,305.68. Okay. So that's how much you would have after that compound interest. Now, your book then goes over annual percentage yield. And then annual percentage yield, you just, it's just the difference. It's what you actually make on everything. So your book says the annual percentage yield, also called the effective yield, or simply the yield, is the actual percent by which a balance increases in 1 year. It is equal to the APR if interest is compounded annually. It is greater than APR if interest is compounded more than once. So we can look at doing this example. We'll find the APY on this example, okay? So annual percentage yield, and we'll use this example. So, did they do one that's just got here? Hold on. They did one by year. Okay, well, now that's not the best example. We can. Hold on, guys, give me 2 seconds. They don't do another one for 1 year. That's weird. Okay. Now, let's do another example. I guess that's more in line with theirs, where same kind of thing though. Let's say we've got same equation. We're going to use the compound equation we just had. And let's say we have a principal of $500. Why not? And we've got an APR of, let's use a really nice, like plain APR. Let's say like 6%. And let's compound weekly. So that's going to be 52, right? And then let's just do this for 1 year. So the year's going to be 1. And let's see how much we have at the end. Okay, so if I pop this in the formula, it would be A equals 500 times 1 plus, now you only have to divide by 1 here. Oh wait, no, yeah, no, 52, I'm sorry, yes. So it's going to be 0.06 divided by 52. And then I'm going to raise it to the 1 times 52. So really just 52. Let's see what we wind up getting back. So we have 500 times 1 plus 0.06, not 0.6, 0.06, divided by 52. And then I'm going to raise it to the 52. So you wind up with $530 and actually 90 cents if you raised it to the penny. Okay. And that's what we do here. We typically raise it to the penny. So that's same as, that's just like the questions before. But now what if we wanted to find the APY, the yield? If we want to find the APY, we're going to just take the amount we actually made and divide it by the principal. So if we look at this, the amount we made is going to be $30.90, right? And then we're going to divide it by what we started with, 500. So 30.9 divided by 500. Equals 0.0618. So really, if you think of this as a percentage, 6.18%. So even though the APR was 6%, the actual percent we made because of the weekly compounding increased that to 6.18%. Okay, that's what the APY tells you. It's what you're actually getting out, the actual percentage yield, and not after compounding anyway. Okay. Oh yeah, and then I believe the last formula for this section, which guys, it's not that you have to memorize the formula. You're going to have the book when you take a test, or you can even make notes. That's fine. But it's knowing which formula to use. Okay, so the hard part is not memorizing the formula. You don't have to memorize formulas. It is knowing which one to use. So the next formula, really the last one in this section, is the compounding formula for continuous compounding. So continuous compounding looks a little different. It's A equals P E. Now E is a button in your calculator, and I don't have the calculator on me right now, but I know it's to the left. You'll see an E, like a lowercase e, and it's kind of italicized. That's the base E. It's called the natural base, actually. E raised to the APR times Y. Okay, APR times Y. So A equals PE raised to the APR times Y. And I believe that calculator, when you click on E, it automatically creates the exponent, because that's typically what happens, as E is a base number. It's a base in the exponent. So let's look at, actually, let's look at that 2 questions ago. We did an example. Here, I'll continue this on right here. We did an example that we had $2,000, 7.2% compounded monthly over 7 years. Let's see what happens if we have that same amount. So 2,000, same APR, 7.2%, and then same number of years, but instead of monthly, we're going to compound continuously. Now it's got to say continuous for you to use this formula. Okay. It has to say continuous if you're going to use this formula. And that's the giveaway. Okay. That's the dead giveaway on, well, when do I use this formula? When do I use the other formula? Well, really the giveaway is when I use this one, because it has to say compounded continuously. If not, it'll give you the number of compounds, weekly, daily, monthly, whatever. So compound continuously. And, then you're going to use this formula. So let's pop this one into the calculator. So A equals 2,000 times, actually you can just put E, raised to the APY, or the APR is 7.2%. So that's 0.072 times 7 years. Pop that in my calculator. So clear this out. 2,000 E raised to the 0.072 times 7. So 3,000, or I get 3,310 and 66 cents. So notice we make about $5 more, almost exactly $5, by compounding continuously. That's just the compounds on the compounds that are running continuously over that 7 years, compared to it just being compounded monthly. So you only get $5 more, but it's kind of interesting. You will always get more. I mean, if everything stays the same, but all you do is increase the number of compounds in the year, you'll always wind up with more money. Okay. It's not going to be a lot, but you'll always wind up with more money. It will be a lot if you do it over a large amount of time. Like if you did 50 or 60 years, it can make a huge gap. But not just for 7. Okay. Okay, so I'm about to do my favorite example for this class. Actually, the next section will have the same type of example, but it's because I think it's extremely important for us to know, or really for us to take control of our own retirement and our own long-term retirement. The majority of us that graduate will, and not just graduate, even if you just go in the workforce right now, the majority of us do not have pensions, right? There's a few professions that have pensions, teachers, and then, some union factory type jobs have pensions, but a lot of those even have gone to, retirement funds in the market. So I want to talk a little bit about that, just a wee bit, and then I'll probably talk more about it in another section as well. But I'm going to use the power of compounding to show you why it's important to save now. Okay. So right now, and I'm not sure if you guys work at like a retail job. I know, Walmart, Lowe's, Home Depot, things like that. They'll have a 401k match type savings account. So 401k, and I'm sure I'm going to act like you've never heard that word before, or you've heard it and you've just acted like you knew what it meant, but then you didn't say anything to your boss. Okay. So a 401k, what that is a retirement plan, and you put money into it and you have to leave it in savings until you're, I think it's 62 or 65. Or if you take it out before that, you pay a penalty. Okay. But what's nice is like say Home Depot and Lowe's. Let's say Home Depot. Home Depot, what they'll do is you put a certain amount in and they'll match it, a certain amount of your salary. So typically it's about 3%. So you put in 3% of your salary and they'll match that 3%. So that's 100% of APR in a way, right? I mean, it's 100% yield. It is the best interest rate you will ever get, hands down, period. Okay. Unless you invested in GameStop a few months ago or last month. That was a little bit better of interest rate. Anyway, but this will be the best interest rate overall, okay, is whatever your 401k match program is. So what you do is you put in 3%, they put in 3%, and then it goes into a savings account and it just sits there and it cooks for a very long amount of time, okay, especially if you're in your early 20s or late teens, and it just sits there and it cooks and it cooks and it cooks and it cooks. And then eventually when you retire, you can retire independently and live on, you don't have to worry about being, depending on anyone else for retirement. Okay. You can take control of your own retirement. This is how this is how employers are doing it. This is how really the push is for retirement now, because Social Security is not that much and there are no pensions. So this is one of the other options. Another one's a Roth IRA, and it's similar, but Roth IRAs or IRAs in general, employers don't typically match IRAs. That's a personal retirement savings account. But you can think of it the same way. It's just you won't have the match part on a Roth IRA. Okay, so let's do an example. Let's say you get out of college and you make $40,000 your first year of working. Okay, so you make $40,000. Now I've got to make up a scenario here. This is a little theoretical and the numbers are just kind of close, but I want to tell you it's not that far off. So you make $4,000. So let's say your company does what Home Depot does. They match 3%. So let's look at $40,000 times 0.03. That's $1,200. So you put in $1,200 over a year, each paycheck, say you get paid once a month, you'll put $100 in, right? Each month into this retirement account, and your employer matches that $100. So you get $1,200 from the employer, add that together. Your principal now, after 1 year, is $2,400. Now, of course, once you put it in, it starts making money. This is a little bit of the theoretical. Let's say we start with this $2,400 after 1 year of savings, okay? We're starting with this $2,400, but remember, you just got out of school. Let's say you're 20, I'm gonna wrap this up here for the scenario. You're 25, why not? Just to make it kind of a nice even number. You're 25, you're making $40,000 a year, you get this match, $1,200 and $1,200, and you wind up with $2,400 in this retirement savings account your very first year. Now you gotta think, you're gonna work for a while, right? Let's say you sit down with a retirement advisor and they ask you, when do you want to retire? And you say 60, okay? You say 60. So that means the years we're gonna leave just this amount in our savings account. So let's see, you wanna retire at 60, you're 25, so that's 35 years, okay? 35 years, this thing's gonna sit and accumulate compound interest. Now, the next few parts I'm gonna have to kind of make up, and that's fine. I'll do an example that we haven't really done. Let's say we compound quarterly. That's not really how this works because it's in the market, but we're gonna work on averages. Quarterly. Now, if you invest, and I'm telling you, just talk to a professional finance advisor. Don't talk to the internet and don't talk to me. But a professional finance advisor will tell you that the average APR in like a mutual fund or something of that nature, like where it's just a nice growth fund, is going to be about, let's say 8%. Okay. I think you can get better than that. Let's do 8.5 because I feel like you can get better than that. We'll do 8.5%. Let's see how much we're going to have in this account once we let it sit for 35 years. And this is the power of compound interest. And this is what I want you to remember when you start working, or if you are already working, what you need to take advantage of today, okay? Because in 40 years, when I'm 75, you can email me, or 35 years when I'm 71, you can email me and say, thank you, Mr. Shirley. I'm so glad you did this, because now you're not gonna be wealthy. That's not what it's about. It's just about having the nest egg to retire and not depend on other people, okay? So let's look at this. Let's find out how much we have after this investment. So A equals, we're gonna start with 2,400. Remember the equation was your principal times 1 plus, and we did the APR written as a decimal. If not, you're gonna get a great interest rate. You're gonna get 850% interest. So 0.085, we divide it by the number of compounds a year. Quarterly means it's gonna be 4, okay? And then we're gonna raise it to the number of compounds times the number of years, 35. Okay, so this is what it'll look like in your calculator. Actually, in your calculator, it'll do a little caret, and then this will be on the same line, but make sure to put this in parentheses, okay? Let's see how much you've made after this compounding times 1 plus 0.085 divided by 4 raised to the 4 times 35, 45,572.30. And this is not crazy. I mean, the crazy part is that you were smart enough to leave it in for 35 years. That's the hard part. But you will pay a penalty on 401k for taking out early. But this is what happens. Okay, you've got, and now look, you've got to leave it in. You can't touch it. It's going to go up, it's going to go down, but that's just a nice average rate. Okay, it'll do one of these things. And then it's going to just slowly go up. And you're going to wind up. Now, remember, this is only from the first year. You're going to do the same thing the next year. And hopefully you get a raise, right? And you're going to do it the year after that and hopefully get a raise. Now, the thing is, your yearly, the yearly amount here, it won't be as long each year you wait, right? Each year you wait to do this, this number gets lower and lower, okay? And by it getting lower and lower, it means it has less time to cook and less time to compound exponentially. So for example, let's say you're like, I don't want to retire at 60. Modern medicine is amazing. Let's go to 70. So 10 more years. I'm going to use all the same numbers except the year. So if I go to 70 here, that would be 45 years. So everything else is going to be the same. So A equals 2,400 times 1 plus 0.085 divided by 4 raised to the 4 times 45. This is what it'll look more like in your calculator, right? So let's see here, 2,400 times 1 plus 0.085 divided by, not percent, divide by 4 raised to the 4 times 45. So the only thing we changed, notice, the only thing in both these equations we changed is the years. We're going to leave, let's say we get to 65 and we're like, I can, or was it 60? Let's say we get to 60. I'm like, I love what I do. I could do this for another 10 years and not worry about pulling out from my retirement. We're going to do 10 more years. Well, the amount goes to $105,677.80, right? Boom. It more than doubled by keeping it in an extra 10 years. That's compound interest. That's how compound interest works, right? It doesn't compound linearly, it compounds exponentially. So it goes from a 45 to 105 in 10 years because we didn't touch it, right? And it's compounding interest. Now you got to think too, okay, I know like this is a big number and it's still going to be a big number in 45 years. But you also, we talked about rate of inflation in the last chapter, right? $105,000 now is not going to be $105,000 in 45 years. So we have to keep that in mind. Okay. So just know, I know $105,000 from one year savings, but we also have to realize the rate of inflation is just a little different. So it won't be, I'm going to guess it'll be about, less than half, probably like 45. This will be like 40,000 in a way, or the purchase power. Kind of sad, but that's just how it is. Okay. Okay. So for your homework, I just want you to do the homework that is in our schedule. I'm going to go to it real fast just so I don't get it wrong. So the homework for 4B starts on page 213. And it's going to be 1 through 113 odd. But I'll tell you, you could probably do every other one and be fine. Yeah, you could do every other one of these and be fine. It does a good job of reviewing some basic algebra that we really didn't cover in here, but you'll need it moving forward. So the homework does a good job of just some basic good algebra review, which I know some of us need. That's why we chose this class, right? Over college algebra. So go over that. Enjoy the snow. I know, Weston, I'm so proud of you for making it. You did not have to come in today, bud, but I'm glad you made it. And if you guys have any questions, please feel free to email me. I'm gonna get those tests graded within or this week. I'll get those tests graded. Remember, we've got the rough draft due coming up. I believe it's next week, but keep that in mind. You need to get that first rough draft, or really the rough draft due from the final paper, so I can review over it. And Weston, unless you have any questions, but I'm done. Just give me a thumbs up if you don't have any questions.